What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Boozer here. Thanks for stopping by. Hopefully you guys are having a great day so far. In today's video, we're going to be taking a deeper look at how Plarium is doing with their new parent company, MTG. So if you guys didn't know, Plarium used to be owned by a company called Aristocrat, which was a casino gaming company. So fittingly, Plarium and Raid fit under the umbrella for Aristocrat, but since Aristocrat has sold Plarium to this new company called MTG, which is mostly a media group based out of Sweden. They hold lots of different companies, and that sale happened late last year and completed earlier this year. And I thought it would be a good time to take a look at how the company is actually doing, since this is the first meaningful quarter of results that the new parent company has with Plarium. Now, before I jump into that, make sure you guys let me know in the comments below what you guys think about Plarium in 2025. If you guys enjoy the content, make sure you guys hit that like button. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. It definitely helps me out quite a bit. I would appreciate that very much. Without further ado, let's jump into this presentation here. Now, I did take a look at this as well as cross-reference against some other financial statements that they had, just to provide some more context on some of these numbers, but it's super interesting. And yeah, I like looking at this stuff. I periodically make these videos just to give you guys a heads up on what's going on with this company. And honestly, without fail, Plarium and Raid is an absolute juggernaut of a cash money making machine. So will it be any different with this quarter? You can kind of see here, it's Q2 of 2025. Like I said, in the first quarter, Plarium was not fully integrated into MTG yet. So it never had a full quarter with Plarium under the umbrella at MTG, but in this Q2, we have it. So let's take a look at what's going on. All right, so this is just a general overview of MTG as a company. So they're saying accelerate organic growth of 9% in Q2 with a 22% operating margin. Now, keep in mind that these figures are in Swedish kronas. So I had to look up the currency exchange between Swedish kronas, and I'm just going to use the USD currency, and it's about 10 cents per 1 Swedish krona. So we have to keep that in mind when we're looking at these figures. Now, just a general overview on the company. Company is doing fine, doing good. 9% organic growth is very solid for a growing company. Let's move on to the next slide here. And this one is super interesting here. So this shows total net sales for the company here. So you can kind of see here, Q1, 25, Q2, 25. So what happened in Q1? They took in Plarium Play, which included, of course, Raid Shadow Legends. So you can kind of see like their overall total sales totally shot up, right? Shot up because of the acquisition of Plarium and, of course, Raid, right? Raid's the big money maker for Plarium. The rest of Plarium's titles are probably break even in terms of growth, but Raid is the big cash cow, right? So you can kind of see here how their sales in both Q1 and Q2 have basically skyrocketed since the acquisition of Plarium. Now, of course, that doesn't tell the whole picture because they obviously have to pay a lot of money to get Plarium, but Plarium instantly is starting to make back what they invested in. And you can see here with the purple graph that they're growing at a 21% compound annual growth rate, which is really good. So we can see they're making more money and they're growing. So that's really good signs for a new company, MTG, that their investment in Plarium was well-founded. Now, this slide is super interesting. Revenue has doubled year over year from Plarium consolidation, as well as 9% organic growth driven by Word Games, Heroes of History, Warhammer 40,000, and F1 Clash. So these are the other titles that MTG has. But you can see here, revenue has doubled since the Plarium consolidation. So basically, when they picked up Plarium makes up half of their total revenue. You can kind of see here, Q2 revenue per franchise. This dark green circle is Plarium. So I've highlighted it here. It makes up 49% of their total revenue. All the revenue they make, half of it comes from Plarium. That's pretty insane. You can kind of see here in the visual bar graph here. So Q1 25, Q2 25. Q1 Plarium was basically integrated into their system, so I wouldn't consider that the numbers full, like basically complete, but Q2 is complete figures. So you can kind of see here that in Q2 they've made 1.424 billion Swedish kronas, which then converts into 142 million US dollars. And you can kind of see the difference here, right? You see the extra, about 40% gains from quarter 1 to quarter 2. So we can kind of see that Plarium is actually making more money from quarter 1 to quarter 2. And basically the total growth, you can kind of see here 2.5, billion, 2.9 billion Swedish kronas. Basically all that growth came directly from Plarium increasing their total revenues. So ultimately, what do we really conclude from like a slide like this? As a random person just looking at these numbers, it looks like Plarium's doing pretty darn good. And actually MTG relies on Plarium quite a bit because Plarium makes up 50% of their current revenues per quarter. But as a, basically a Raid player, we can kind of see that Raid is doing very well. Raid is doing very, very well. And just quickly looking back at 2024 shareholder numbers for Plarium from Aristocrat, it said that for 2024, they made about 613 million total revenue. So 142 million here. All right, on to our next slide here. So this shows the user acquisition spend for MTG. So it's saying 36% of revenues are reinvested into user acquisition in quarter 2. It's up from 33%, but it's down from 38% from the previous quarter. So generally, around the mid or low 30% range for revenue reinvestment into user acquisition. That's how, how they pay for all the advertisements and stuff to get new users. Compared to Plarium. So this is Plarium's Pixel United segment from Aristocrat. So this is their previous parent company, Aristocrat's numbers from 2024. They were spending about 21.6%. So they were spending significantly less. It kind of makes sense because Plarium, Raid, and all that stuff were like basically mature games for Aristocrat. They probably didn't see the need to spend more money on user acquisition, whereas the new company, MTG, right here, is definitely spending more money to acquire users. We can kind of see that MTG is definitely, putting their best foot forward in terms of trying to get more players for the games that they have on offer. So they're willing to spend a little bit more money to reinvest into acquiring these players. Now, I think eventually MTG will probably shift over to what Aristocrat was doing just before Aristocrat sold off, is that they would probably drop a lot of their user acquisition spending once they see that they've kind of reached, maybe like the peak of what they can actually earn per revenue. So at this point, they're probably definitely still looking to grow and enhance the gaming offerings that they have. So this is really interesting, and I thought we'd kind of take a deeper look at this as well. So up until this point, we can kind of see that Plarium's doing well, or at least in line. They're definitely doing well for MTG, making up a big portion of, their overall offerings, big portion of their overall revenues. With that all said, I kind of want to jump into what the CEO has to say about this whole Plarium acquisition part. So she's saying that our total growth in the quarter was supported by our largest title, Raid Shadow Legends. It's interesting that they name Raid Shadow Legends by itself, obviously not part, they didn't say Plarium acquisition, they just said Raid Shadow Legends, which is part of the recent Plarium acquisition and consolidation from February this year. In addition to this consolidation impact, the game's revenues were up slightly year over year in quarter 2. So this is comparing to Aristocrat's quarter 2 from 2024. So it's up slightly. Like I said, it's probably in line with what what Aristocrat was seeing. But for a game like this that's many years old, to actually maintain is actually really, really good. So it's up. The team delivered several strong events in the quarter. What events was she talking about? So the performance of Raid Shadow Legends was driven by strong live ops calendars, so basically live events that are going on. The community weeks engaged players with daily rewards and culminated in a live YouTube event. I think that was the content creator kind of game show that they did. So that's what they're talking about here. In June, the summer campaign launched with a major content drop, including the Demon Invasion event, which introduced 5 new champions available through the loyalty program, in-game mechanics, and other live ops initiatives. The event is ongoing and runs until the first week of August. Anyways, this is written by somebody, that probably doesn't know anything about Raid or the game or anything. That's why the wording is a little bit off, but that's what the CEO is mentioning here. Let's move on to what else she says. She says the acquisition and integration of Plarium presents us with a major unprecedented opportunity to accelerate our journey towards the vision. So this kind of goes back to what I was saying about how this company really sees Plarium as a very, very positive acquisition to help push their offerings into, new levels, right? It's more to them than just about making, super, super high dollars initially. They actually feel like Plarium's, whatever Plarium has in terms of their tangible assets or intangible assets, really help their company out, which is really interesting. Our strategic focus in Q2 was therefore been on the rapid but thorough evaluation of all capabilities, tech stacks, and toolkits across the group, which began in Q1 following the closing of the Plarium transaction. Layman's terms, they're assessing everything that Plarium has to offer, and they're seeing how it can be incorporated into the greater universe of basically holdings that they have in their portfolio. We are now finished the first phase of this assessment and are working on our game plan for evolving our operating model and creating a scalable shared platform. I think that could mean they are maybe planning to make their own Plarium Play where it has access to all the games that they have, maybe in their entire portfolio. I'm not too sure. But yeah, they're definitely trying to integrate a lot of Plarium into, whatever they currently have to try to improve things. We have also begun to implement select initiatives across the group. So again, they already started to bring what Plarium has into their other holdings. And yeah, this is, really strong vision, really invested in, improving the future for the company, which means Plarium is going to be a big part of that future, which is good to see, especially as, raid players, right? All right, so driving back to this slide here. So this shows the in-app purchases. So IAP is in-app purchases. IAA is in-app advertising. We all know, exactly what those means. Like layman's terms, it's just purchases in the game versus ads in the game. And then DAU means daily active users. And then ARPDAU is average revenue per daily active user. All right, guys. So we got to keep in mind that obviously Q1 and Q2, that's when Plarium was picked up. It actually gives you a little bit of a closer look at what Plarium/Raid is actually capable of doing. So the in-game, in-app purchases went up from 60%. So this 60% here, that's before Plarium, went from 60% all the way up to 79%. So based on this chart, they're now relying on more heavily in-app purchases as opposed to in-app advertising for their total revenues. This is about revenue streams, right? So it's 79% of their revenues come from in-app purchases, and that is a massive drive from Plarium. Plarium drove this number up big time because of in-app purchases. Now they no longer need to rely on in-app advertising for their revenue streams, or at least the ads represent less of their total revenue streams and more in-app purchases. But this is a direct result of just adding Plarium, and of course, Raid Shadow Legends is the biggest title in Plarium by a long shot. And we can kind of see here user development. This is interesting. Daily active users, it went from roughly around 6.4, 6.5, 6.3 just before the Plarium acquisition, so 6.3, and then it shot up to 9. So we can kind of assume that by adding Plarium, they've added about 2.7 million active users, daily active users to their total holdings, right? So we can kind of say that Plarium, not just Raid, Plarium, has roughly 2.7 million average active users. That's actually quite a bit. Now I would say I would say that's quite a bit, like 2.7. And that's across all the titles. So I would say, Plarium or Raid probably makes up like 2.6 million active users per day. Now, interesting comparison here again with the 2024 statistics from Aristocrat. We can kind of see the daily active users are here. Daily active users period end. So it says for 2024, it's 3.9 million daily active users. Now, the thing is with Aristocrat is that they have this umbrella called Pixel United, which includes Plarium as well as some other game titles. So it doesn't give you a exact look at Plarium itself. Unfortunately, they don't really break it up too much more. So that's all part of this kind of umbrella here. But you can kind of see that year over year, it has declined maybe about 20% from 4.6 to 3.9. And right now, as you can clearly see from this MTG graph, that Plarium probably looking to have about 2.7 average users. As they get more data and own Plarium for longer, you can kind of get a better look at how much actual average users they have. But at this point in time, we can kind of assume that, Plarium / Raid, looking at about 2.5, 2.6, 2.7 million active users, which I thought was, kind of high. I don't know. I feel that's kind of high, but who knows, right? And then you have daily active, the average bookings. Here's B bookings, but basically average revenue per person. When it was under Aristocrat, they were making $1.12 per person in 2024. And then you can kind of see here that MTG's average revenue per daily active user. This is in Swedish kronas, but like I said, you can it's multiplied by 10 cents per US, so it's equivalent to 10 cents US per krona. So you're making about 35 US cents per active user. Now this is, you can't really compare the two different companies because they hold totally different games. They have different player base and all that, and how much money they can actually make. So under the Pixel United and Aristocrat, they're making more money per user, but the games that they offer probably were more casino based, right? So you can kind of see here social casino and all that stuff. So people are probably more likely to spend. It doesn't really show you a direct user spend for something like Raid specifically, but I guess what you can kind of conclude is that people are spending more money when they added Plarium. So when they added Plarium, the average spend rate went up. So people in Plarium's umbrella probably spend more than what the average holdings that they previously had were spending. Either way, this graph basically just shows that the acquisition of Plarium definitely helps MTG's bottom line, helps their numbers grow in many ways, and will likely to continue to do so and keep pushing their other numbers up as well. Now, some pipeline news here. This just for some stuff that's coming up. We have Plarium here on the far right. They have this soft launch for this Elf Island, so it's a brand new game that's coming for Plarium, but they also have some upcoming projects here. We have 2 new titles from Plarium, a little bit of interest there. I think that's, we don't know what it could be, but they do have 2 upcoming projects in the pipeline. Yeah, we will see how that does, but interesting to hear. So to summarize, I'll recap a little bit more about what the CEO is saying. The CEO is saying, I remain firmly convinced that the work we are doing now will position MTG as one of the most attractive partners with effective ecosystems for gaming entrepreneurs who want to accelerate their journey and join a fantastic community of industry peers. And she concludes by saying the 2025 outlook. MTG's outlook for the full year 2025 is for organic sales. This includes Plarium to be within 3 to 7%. So they're expecting a slight slowdown for the second half of the year, but they expect the EBITDA margin to be within 21 to 24%. You can kind of see from this report that they were already within that range. So, they're not expecting this to like moonshot basically, but they're expecting it to basically hold pretty steady. Now, I think those are overall like pretty conservative outlook for, this big acquisition. But I think the value for the MTG company is that they incorporated a, big section of revenue generating games, like mainly Raid Shadow Legends, into their portfolio. And they also have additional intangible assets that they want to incorporate into their other games, into their business, so they can improve their bottom line in other areas as well. Obviously, success for Raid is really important because they have to make back their investment and all that. But I think overall they're pretty happy. They're pretty happy with it. And I think it worked out for them really, really well now that they can incorporate, whatever intellect they're picking up from Plarium into their other areas of their business. Now, for the player, what does this mean? This means that, overall, just looking at these numbers from a player standpoint, I'm like, well, I'm seeing that Raid is definitely not dying. They're not dying, but they're not really growing. Now, under MTG, with the increased user acquisition spending, we can kind of see that they're spending more money after they picked up Plarium. Who knows? Who knows what kind of promos they might do? They might do more promos. That's basically where money goes into. Or we might see more special events. But it does kind of feel like under MTG, they have Plarium has kind of gotten a new breath of fresh air. and have re-entered this kind of more actively spending to acquire users phase again. Whereas with Aristocrat, we can kind of tell like they were a very mature game, 6+ years with them already. And then we can kind of see like a more decline in how much money they wanted to spend on marketing and promos and all that. Although as a player, I didn't really realize that there were any kind of slowdown in that regard. I thought there were some still pretty good promos that they were still putting out, like, periodically every 3 or 4 or 5 months. So hopefully we can see more of that under MTG in the following months and years that they own them. Now, also, I want to preface that I'm not a professional financial analyst or anything like that. I just look at this out of interest sake. So if you guys have some comments yourself, let me know in the comments below. If you guys see something I missed or maybe misinterpreted, that'll be helpful for everybody, of course. Now, what do I think about all this? Now, personally speaking for myself, like I'm a content creator. I play this game very, very, regularly, heavily. I have 2 accounts. I play them full time, end game accounts. For me, the future of Raid looks very bright. I don't think this company is going to do them dirty by letting them basically rot away. I think this is like a golden goose for MTG. They want to make sure that this company, first of all, repays their investment, the cost of purchasing Plarium. But I think they also want to really take a, kind of microscope to their practices, to their intellect, to their assets, and see how they can actually incorporate that to make their overall business better. So for them, this acquisition of Plarium, I think they hold in very high regards. And the way they were speaking about it, especially the CEO, about the future of the company and all that, and how this was a massive deal for them, and they feel like it's a big driver for what's going to make the MTG company successful in the future. So I feel like they're going to give a lot of importance to Plarium. And yes, it's a business, and yes, it's about making money and all that. But when you have a company that really values a company that they picked up, or really values a business that they picked up, I think it's better than just picking it up and having it be a side product of what they actually wanted. So overall, I think it's a good thing for, players of Raid. But we'll see, right? This is only the first quarter, so we don't have full information. I think after we see maybe like 4 quarters, like a full year with Plarium, we can kind of get some more detailed numbers about how Plarium is actually doing. Previously with Aristocrat, like I said, Plarium was kind of lumped into this umbrella with other games. So it was kind of hard to get the hard detailed numbers on how Plarium was doing, and then how, the inner workings of Plarium was doing, like Raid and the other games that Plarium has. So it's a little bit harder to find those details. But yeah, we will see as the time goes by. We'll get more information on how Plarium's doing with MTG, and we can make some better conclusions at that point. But anyways, guys, that's going to be it for the video. Hopefully this was informative for you guys. If you guys like the content, make sure you guys hit that like button. Make sure you guys subscribe for future content. Make sure you guys leave me a comment on what you guys think about all this. Do you guys agree, disagree? What do you guys feel like? What do you guys see in game? But let me know in the comments. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching until the end. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.